Hi guys and welcome back. In this video we're going to start learning about decorators. Decorators are great in Python because they allow us to very easily modify functions. So let's learn more about them. Here we've got a user dictionary that has a username and an access level of guest. Let's say that guests can't access this function here, getAdminPassword, which returns the password to your admin panel. But, as you can see, if we print out getAdminPassword at the moment, even though we're a guest, we're going to get out 1234. There's nothing in this function to prevent us from doing that. So, the output of this video should be to get this function secured so that people that are guests cannot get the value out. Now, of course, the clear thing that you can do is to put an if statement in here. If the user's access level is equal to admin, then you can print out this function. Otherwise, you can't. So this will work. If you run that, you don't get anything. But of course, as you know, getAdminPassword is still unsecure, so you can still print that out and it will still work. Because what we've done is we have protected this specific call to getAdminPassword, but we haven't protected this one. So this is probably not exactly what we want to do. The next thing we can do is we can define a secure function. For example, secure getAdmin. And in this one, if the user's access level is admin, then we can return the password 1234. Now, a couple of things. Clearly, getAdminPassword is still defined, so that is not going to work. But secure getAdmin does protect the password. So running that gives you none, first of all, when you run secure getAdmin, because we didn't return 1234. Instead, we returned none, which is a default. Then you get 1234 the next time around. So, of course, what you may want to do is delete this one entirely. But that poses a small problem, which is that all the functions where you want it to be secure, you're going to have to add this if statement. And up till now, that is what you would have done if you didn't know about decorators. But a decorator will allow us to modify this function to secure it without having to replace all of our functions by its secure counterparts. So we don't want to do that either. Instead, what we could do is define another function, secure function, that takes in a function. We've learned about first class functions, so we can take it in as a function in there, and we'll say if the user's access level is equal to admin, then we will return func. Otherwise, we'll return none. And now what you may be tempted to do is to do something like getAdminPassword is equal to secure function getAdminPassword. So will this work? Well, let's run through the code. We've got secure function being called, which takes in getAdminPassword, and when this line runs, we're going to check the user's access level and see if it's admin, and if it is, we're going to return func. So let's see what happens. Now you get an error. None type object is not callable because, of course, when we ran this code, i.e. this line here, the user's access level was guest, not admin, so we didn't return func. We returned none, which is the default, so getAdminPassword equaled none. Then we try to run none as if it were a function, but you can't do that, so you get an error. What you would have to do is make sure that your user is an admin before you run any of your code, and then it will work and you will get 1234. So this is a step closer to what we want, but alas, it requires that our user be an admin before we secure our functions. Ideally, we would like to do something that checks the user's access level when you call the function, not when you define it. So here's what we're going to do. We're still going to take in a function, but now we're going to define another function, which I'm going to call secure function. This one I'm going to call make secure. This one doesn't take any parameters, and it is the one that checks. And it returns calling the original function. Then, here we return secure function. So this is a decorator. What happens now, and by the way, this should be make secure. What happens now is that getAdminPassword, this function that we want to secure, is passed to the make secure function. This one defines another function. And by the way, in Python, you can define functions inside of functions. That's totally fine. And this function here, when called, will check the user's access level and return calling the original function, which is getAdminPassword. So it will return 1234 if the user's access level is admin. So that's this function here. And then we return the function itself, not the function call, but the function itself. So getAdminPassword will be equal to this function, which calls seemingly itself, but this is okay. It calls getAdminPassword from up here. So when you call getAdminPassword, what you're going to do is you're going to check the user's access level, and then you're going to return the result of calling the function originally, which will give you 1234. At the moment, you get none, but of course, if you set the user's access level to admin down here, and you run it again, then you get 1234, which is exactly what we wanted. So this is a simple decorator. This simple decorator will create a function and replace the original function with the secure one, so that you can no longer call getAdminPassword without having the admin access level. Now, if you wanted to add a little bit of error handling, you can do an else here, and you can return something like no admin permissions for username. And that'll give you a nicer idea of what's going on if you don't have admin permissions. That's everything for this video. This is a simple decorator. And now in the next one, we're going to learn more about using the @ syntax for decorators that makes this much simpler and much easier to reuse and secure multiple functions if that's what you want to do. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you in the next video.